Hi divers, Alec Peirce Scuba back here at Scuba 2000 with another tech tip. I keep up on reg technology and there's very little of anything that's new on the market. I thought I'd just talk about it for 1 minute. Let me show you an example of a old regulator. This is an early regulator, excellent regulator from a company that's no longer in business. They were actually bought out by another company and the name has now disappeared. Dacor, D-A-C-O-R, named after Sam Davison, the founder. Dacor, Davison Corporation. Anyway, wonderful products. They were big company for many years. Anyway, they're gone. But they did make excellent regulators, and this is a typical regulator from the 70s and 80s. The first stage is the first stage. You recognize it. It's simple enough. It has a knob on it, and has a filter in there, and a cap and a hose coming up the side, a high-pressure port. It's exactly the same as a modern regulator. We're going to compare a modern regulator. Second stage is almost exactly the same, too. It's got a mouthpiece and an exhaust and a hose coming in one side, a perch button on the front. Same thing. Okay? Excellent. Very rugged. Now, you will notice one difference. If you're looking carefully, you'll notice that this regulator is all chromed metal. It is, in fact, brass, chrome, the whole thing. Front cover, the main body, everything else is chrome brass. Most regulators today are made of a synthetic material, cycolac or whatever they call their different plastic polymers that they use in regulators. And I think that's a good thing. Some of you don't. I love chrome. Hey, my first car was a 1956 Buick Special. Look it up. Yeah, it's all chrome, not the body, but I love chrome. But the fact remains, for scuba diving, the new synthetic materials are much better. They're a lot lighter to start with. Secondly, they don't corrode. They don't break. You can drop them, don't break. You drop this and it bends and cracks and wears out and so on. So that's a good thing, the new materials. But that is a basic regulator. It's as simple as it gets. It's got a balanced first stage, but the only thing that makes it better than a cheaper bottom line regulator. Let's take a look at a brand new regulator. This is a brand new regulator. I don't know when this first came out. This is the Apex regulator. Has more toys on this than I can count. Let's start with the first stage. At first glance, it looks very similar. There's a knob on the back and a dust cap and a hose coming on, right? But what else has it got? Well, first of all, what it has is a swivel. A swivel's nice to have. There's no question about that. And a lot of the top line regulators now have a swivel. A swivel is nice because if you have the reg in your mouth and you turn your head, you see what happens? The swivel turns. See there? So it's less likely to push the reg out of your mouth. Or if you turn to the left, the swivel, the hose follows your head. Less likely to push it out. And they've added a flex hose, which also, if you've seen a recent tech tip, also makes it less likely for the reg to pull out of your mouth because it's so flexible. Okay? So a swivel is a nice feature for a regulator. Not new. There have been swivels around since the 70s. Lots of regulators have swivels, and most regulators, once you get beyond the very basic reg, most of them have a swivel, so that's not really new. Okay, what else has it got? I mean, it's balanced. That's not new. This is an antifreeze kit. So if you look at the end here, there's a little rubber diaphragm, and that rubber diaphragm, inside that rubber diaphragm, there's a chamber that's filled with silicone oil. All regulators have to respond to the water pressure, so they give you air at the right pressure. And to do that, water has to effectively go into the regulator, push on the piston or on the diaphragm. And when water goes inside, there's a possibility of corrosion and breakdown. So this has an environmental kit, sometimes called an antifreeze kit, which is really just a rubber diaphragm with silicone oil underneath it. That's a neat device. That's a neat innovation. And they tout that as, oh, new antifreeze. It's not new. There have been antifreeze kits like this since at least the late 60s into the 70s. In fact, when we were diving in the 60s, we would make our own do-it-yourself antifreeze kit. Can I mention this online, Kevin? You take the regulator and we would fill the regulator with gin. Gin was about the best. Alcohol doesn't freeze. And then we put a balloon over it. We didn't use balloons, but there's something similar to a balloon that you can put over the holes, and then we put some tape around it or a rubber band antifreeze kit. So, not new. What else is it? Oh, this has got an automatic closure device. There's a device in here, so when you take the knob off and you pull the dust cap out, it closes automatically, so you can't possibly get salt water in. Not new. been around for about 15 years, at least Oceanic, 15 years. I think Sportsways had one before that, another company that's gone. So these are great devices, but when you see the advertising, new, unique, no, bad news. Let's look at the second stage. There's the second stage. Now this is pretty neat. There's several things in this second stage that are different. First of all, it is, as you can see, all synthetic polymer, unbreakable, doesn't corrode, can't rust. But it's got some other neat things. Look right here. If you can see right there, Kevin, you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of ridges on there. That looks pretty. See them there? That's really pretty, huh? That's not there for looks. That's called a heat sink. Now, it's a little wee bit of a stretch because those 2 or 3 ridges on there aren't going to get much heat from the surrounding water. But the idea is it's a heat sink, and that heavy brass with the ridges acts like a radiator and gets heat from the water because the water isn't frozen. So the valve that's right inside there is less likely to freeze as well. It's not a bad idea. Doesn't do a great deal, but it's not a bad idea. We don't know for sure how much it helps. But it's not new. There have been heat sinks like this on Sherwood regulators and on, I think, water lung regulators had one 30, 40 years ago. Let's go to the other end. Look over here. Oh boy, this is like a spaceship dashboard. Look at all the knobs and levers over here. This is pretty good. So this knob here actually adjusts the breathing. So while you're diving, you can actually make it easier to breathe, or you can make it harder to breathe. That's right, while you're diving. Yeah. Adjustable second stage. You can adjust it on the fly. Or to be on the fin, wouldn't it? Well, anyway, you can adjust it as you're diving. You can make it easier, which is good, or you can make it, why would you want to make it harder? Well, maybe the reg is free-flowing a little bit too much. You just make it a little bit harder. Or maybe you're diving in a stiff current, and it's actually pushing on the, I can actually do that on a very sensitive regulator like this one. You can actually push on the purge and it'll start to free flow. It's a little less sensitive. You still breathe, you still got lots of air. And this is another, look at the lever up here. Yeah, this is your accelerator. That's actually a good analogy. When you push it away, this is a venturi. When you push it away, the reg breathes normally. You breathe in, you blow. If for some reason you need a blast of air, maybe you're working really hard, you're finning hard against a current, or you're lifting something heavy off the bottom, or it's very deep and you're finding it a lot of effort to breathe, pull that towards you, and you get a venturi effect. The venturi effect very simply means that as soon as you take a breath and air starts to flow, the regulator senses that and it gives you a lot of air suddenly. So now, instead of being a inhale, it's like this. Fills you up. Okay? Not comfortable all the time. You don't want that when you're just swimming along normally. It can be uncomfortable, so you can turn it down part way or turn it off entirely. So those sound like new features, don't they? No, they're not new features. The adjustable breathing is very, very common. Scuba Pro, as an example, has had adjustable breathing, on-the-fly breathing, if you like, for 25 or 30 years, maybe longer. Almost all of their regulators have that knob on the side. And the Venturi, again, Scuba Pro is one example, other regs as well. In fact, I'm going to tell you something kind of interesting, is that this old regulator here, which, by the way, is from the 70s, is actually, in some ways, more sophisticated than that one. And this particular regulator, can you see inside there, Kevin? Yeah. Can you see that little baffle inside the mouthpiece inside there? This regulator has an automatic venturi. That's right. You don't have to have a lever out here. This regulator, the lever has a little vein on it so that when you start to breathe in and the air goes past the vein, you breathe normally. But if you need that big blast of air that I mentioned, when you wish you had the venturi, don't worry about it. Suck on it. Give it a good suck on it. And that vein comes down quickly, and that little twisted venturi, a little twisted vein, blows air into your mouth. Automatic venturi. Only when you need it. Breathe normally. Need a lot of air. Fills you right up. So, you know, point is, there's a regulator there that's 40 years old. It has some of the same features as this. So don't be too blown away by all the new innovative things. Watch my tech tips and read about these automatic features. I'm not saying they're not good. They're nice. A lot of these are nice. The swivel is really nice. All these are nice features to have. But it just bothers me a little bit when I hear people, oh, you hear about that new venturi on the regulators? It's not new at all. Us old guys weren't completely stupid, you know. Anyway, just some thoughts. Maybe you have some comments on that. Maybe your rig does have them or doesn't have them. You do like them or don't like them. Keep sending me in comments. I like it very much. Okay, guys, Alec Peirce, Scuba. That's Scuba 2000, once again with some tech tips. Talk to you soon.